Okay. Hello. And welcome as I. Where did I leave off? Oh, wow, I left off right there. Okay. Alright. So. Ugh. Oh, dude, I'm tired. Alright. So, May just got done talking to the lady of North Farm. And now we're here. Oh, God. Sorry. Alright. We start with Chapter 17, The Letter and the Leaf. Sitting near the edge of the pass, bored, Commander Berserko was just about to clean her ears for the third time that evening when she noticed something curious to her left. Her tongue passed on the pad of her paw, and she stared a moment longer. Then she stood up and padded over to what had caught her eye, quickly recognizing it for what it was, a drawing in the dirt. And there's a drawing. Yeah. Kadeki, you can't get in this picture. That's what the picture looks like. It looks like a mouse and an arrow. Yeah, right here. Yeah, it looks like a mouse with an arrow. The commander sniffed the drawing for a second, then pulled back, licking her lips. It smelled like the living cat. But then Commander Berserko had always made a point of pride that she was the only cat in the universe, with the exception of one or two artist cats she'd heard of in Manhattan, who knew how to draw. As she studied the mouse more intently, a long thread of saliva dripped from her mouth. Her gaze followed the line of the arrow. Could there really be a mouse that way? Commander Berserko had not chased a mouse in years. She glanced back at the petrified pass. The travelers would never come out anyway. And if they did, she would be able to smell them from miles away. Had them, and if they did, she wouldn't be able to smell them from miles away. Had the mouse ventured to scurry that far and hurry right back. In any case, the pass was covered by South Place's most fearsome slew of goblins and zombies. Why waste the opportunity? The demon cat floated off into the distance. When May climbed out of her flower in the morning, she was greeted not by the lady, but by a letter pinned to a leaf. Cool. All right. May, I am a busy woman, and I don't want to wait. I didn't want to wake you, as you'll need all of your rest. Let me say that again. May, I am a busy woman, and I didn't want to wake you, as you'll need all of your rest for what lies ahead. I have decided that, yes, I will grant your request. Unfortunately, I cannot send you home, but I can tell you how to get there. You know about the four portals that lead from this world to Earth. There was a fifth almost no one knows about. You'll need to steel your courage to get there. You'll see a bag at your feet. May looked down. There was a black velvety sack resting on the limb. It contains gifts, some that you'll need and some that I want you to have. You'll find a new death shroud. You'll find new death shrouds, one for you and one for Somber Kitty. Yours may be a touch too large, but don't worry, you'll grow into it. And the nice thing is, it'll never fall off. Both shrouds will be more convincing than the rag here you are toting around now. For one thing, for one thing, you won't have the unmistakable smell of the living any longer. There's a new bathing suit. I noticed yours has seen better days. And a key. You'll know when to use the key. I hope. The necklace is for your friend Beatrice. The flowers will bloom for her only if she's willing to let them. I don't think she realizes yet that the mind can't control everything. Sometimes you need to go with your gut. There's. Sorry. There's also a compass. You can guess who that's for. I'm afraid I haven't gotten anything for Pumpkin. Oops. It just slipped my mind. I'm sure he'll understand. And well, the last thing in the bag is a surprise. Maybe a good surprise, maybe not. May, there is an enemy pursuing you that you're not expecting. Be careful. Now, to your escape. You've met our friend the Bogey. The way home is under his bed. I know you must be sorry to hear this. It is dangerous, yes, but no risk, no gain, is what I always say. Good luck, May. I hope we see each other again sometime. P.S. I know everybody is saying I am partly evil. They're right, I must admit. But don't forget, I am also very good. The lady had not signed her name. There was only the stamp like the one May had seen on the letter she'd found in the Brewery Swamp post office, and on the telegram she received on the train. She knelt down and opened the bag, pulling the items out one by one. The first thing her hand closed in around was the key. May knew it was just by May knew it just by the feel of it. But when she pulled it out, she saw it looked like nothing like the key. Let me say that again. But when she pulled it out, she saw it looked nothing like the key John the Gibber had used to get them into the eternal edifice. This key was black and lustreless. The hand the hand shaped into a ghoulish head with a frightening pair of eyes. May studied it for a long second. Then, not wanting to look at it any longer, she stuck it into the pocket of her shorts. There was the necklace, the one with one end strung through a tiny hole at the other end. A miniature living magnolia bud hung from the middle. May smiled. Beatrice would think it was beautiful. She pulled out a black velvet garment with a hood and a cinched collar. She lifted it to herself gingerly. It was much lighter than the shroud she wore, which was by now muddy and crusted with goo and cat fuzz. May untied her old cape and laid it aside, then pulled the new one around her shoulders. She tied it at her neck and stood, surveying herself. Whoa! The moment she rose. May's feet lifted inches off the ground. She swayed and wiggled in the air, tilting every which way, thrusting her arms out for balance. Hold on, I just need a second. Wow! She laughed and spun around, her feet fanning out beneath her. She looked down at her body, which was now just as transparent as bees or Fabios or pumpkins. She shuffled her feet in the air. Sorry. Oh, I see. I'm just barely getting your text. All right. She shuffled her feet in the air. She leaned forward and drifted effortlessly from one end of the tree limb to the other. At the very tip, she stumbled forward and almost fell. May jerked backward, balancing herself, and sobered a little. And sobered a little, drifting drifted back to the bag. Apparently, floating didn't mean she could fly. She dug in the bag again, this time pulling out a much smaller cape with a little hood and ear holes. She laughed with delight. The bathing suit came next. She peered around to make sure no one was looking, then yanked off her shorts and her old suit, yanking on the new one and pulling the straps over her shoulders. She looked down at the fabric and gasped. The sky. Hold on. Um, the sky and stars in the fabric were moving, nebulae bursting with colors, floating clouds of cosmic dust, twinkling stars, sparkling supernovas, tiny comets shooting across the sky. Her bathing suit looked like the night sky, for real. Grinning, May dug in again, and retrieved a compass like the one Arista had given her back in Belmorte, and that said right way, wrong way, and scenic route. By the look of, by the look of it, there was only one thing left. May was glad the surprise would come last. She reached into the bag, and her hand closed on something cold and metal. She fell along to one end of it and felt her hard thud. She turned the bag inside out, revealing the surprise. Ooh, what do you think the surprise is? Ooh! She turned the bag inside out, revealing the surprise. A bow and a silver quiver full of gleaming silver arrows. There was a tag attached to one of them. Exer arrows. They turn dark spirits to solid silver. Take them. May stood and floated backward awkwardly, thrusting out her arms for balance. The girl in the cave had the girl in the cave had these too. She didn't want them. May looked at the arrows. They didn't just glint, they gleamed. She drifted back toward the spot and touched one silver shaft. I was hoping it was battle axe. A battle axe would be cool too. Yeah, arrows are fucking cool, man. Okay. She drifted back toward the spot and touched one silver shaft. It felt cool to the touch, but her finger, when she pulled it away, went warm and tingly. They were beautiful. Slowly, May pulled one of the arrows out of the quiver. Instead of having a sharp point, it was tipped with a silver magnolia petal. May lifted the quiver gently. She pulled the strap over her head and around her back. The arrows were as light as a feather. Strangely, they felt like they belonged. The others gathered in an anxious circle around Arista's living room when May returned. They all leaped out of their seats, all but Arista. When she came through the door and gaped as she floated before them. They stared at her in silence for a few moments. Meow, Summer Kitty said, leaping onto her shroud and clinging to it until she lifted him into her arms. She looked around the room. Pumpkin had his fingers in his mouth, suddenly shy. Fabio and Beatrice stared at her as if they'd never seen her before. Arista's antennae twitched excitedly. May, confused, turned to see herself in the mirror beside the door. Her bathing suit spun with stars. She floated an inch above the ground. Her bow and arrows glinted on her back. She turned back to the others, blushing. My dear, you are magnificent, Bee gushed. I need to leave the Ever After, she said, and I need to go to South Place to do it. She waited for a moment, her chin lifted defiantly in case they should try to talk her out of it. I'm sorry, but I've got to go. The group all gaped at her, then cast looks at one another. South Place? Fabio finally exclaimed, slapping his hands against the sides of his face. And May is a sorry. And May is a sorry. Bee stilled him with her hand, then turned her big blue eyes on May and nodded. We're going with you. And that is the end of chapter 17. Alright, chapter 18. Chapter 18. Chapter 18. Goalie Gum. Or Gooly Gum. The following morning, Arista woke them all. They had stayed up late the night before, discussing their route to the Dead Sea. Arista had directed them to a town called Hocus Pocus. It's the gateway town for the Dead Sea, he had explained. They manufacture most of the stuff that's used to terrorize people on Earth. Nightmare potions and hexes and so on. Wild town. Lots of dark spirits coming to dance at the clubs, getting their fortunes read, gamble. Occasionally they eat someone, but nobody does much about it. They can't these days, really. There's a lighthouse. There. It's the entrance to South Place. May quickly shot a glance at Pumpkin. He was still hunched over his elbows, sulking because he hadn't gotten a present from the lady. To get to the realm below, dark spirits can simply jump into the water. But for anyone else, jumping in zaps you straight to the dungeons of abandoned hope. Arista shivered. Or so I hear. Far better to use the door. Of course. I hope you don't run into anything unsightly on the stairs. Arista opened the curtains to let in the starlight. Zzz, time to get started. Better to get as far as you can before the dark spirits get wind. You'll be going this way. They'll be looking for you. Zzz. Be sure to keep your destination under your hat. His antennae twitched toward Pumpkin in particular. Unless you want a greeting party waiting for you when you get there. Zzz. Everyone had packed their things. Arista drifted to the front door. I have something for you. He ushered them outside, where everyone lets out sighs of amazement. 4 glowing horses floated in a line outside the door. They won't take you far. They're banished from the rest of the realm, as you know. But they'll get you to the edge of the pass, at least. There was a gentle white horse for Bee, a regimental horse in braids and ribbons for Fabio, a speckled pinto for Pumpkin. The only horse left was a huge black stallion in silver reins with a pouch carrying off the side for Somber Kitty. I suppose that's yours, May. Or, let me say that again. I suppose that's yours, May, Beatrice said. Pumpkin bear hugged Arista, his gangly limbs flailing. Thank you, thank you, thank you! He then ran up to his horse and threw his arms around its neck. Sometime later, after a cheerful goodbye, the weary group set out into the cold. Now, I know you're probably wondering something, and I am wondering too, but they might have a reason that they might discuss later. Is that maybe Arista could have just helped them teleport to that place. And I'm thinking, like, why didn't they do that instead? What I'm thinking is maybe the teleport system. Yeah, I don't know. But I'm thinking that maybe the teleport system has, like, I don't know, this, like, living recognition, like, technology or whatever. I don't know. Maybe they'll get to that issue. Maybe. Okay. Oh, fuck, I'm tired. Alright. Sometime later, after a cheerful goodbye, the weary group set out into the cold. Hours afterward, only Pumpkin had perked up, rocking back and forth on his horse and singing, "Oh, a horse is a horse, of course, and no one has one in the realm, of course, unless that horse is spirit horse named Pumpkin is the best." I can't believe you named your horse Pumpkin is the best, May mused with a sardonic smile, shivering. Fabio held up his new compass for the 30th time that morning. "We are all accounted for," he said, "heading the right way." Nobody made one complaint, but May knew what they must be feeling. They had come all this way with hope of rest, and here they were, on a path more dangerous than ever. The group wended its way out of the valley along the east side. They drifted along the lowest rise of the snowy mountains. They drifted along the lowest rise of the snowy mountains and climbed steadily. May and Kitty snuggled together for warmth. When they crested the mountain, they took a break. On one side, they could see the green, lush forest of North Farm. On the other was the unmistakable, permanent dusk of the Ever After, a vast, empty plain crisscrossed above by shooting stars. May looked back toward the lady's tree. She gave a little wave, but could not tell if anyone was watching. They decided to camp there for the night. Somebody enchanted with his custom death shroud, chased his transparent tail, zipping between May's hovering feet and executing an occasional flip. B, Pumpkin, B, and Fabio said very little, staring at one another somberly. Without having to ask, May knew what they were thinking about the same thing. South Plains. The next morning they left as soon as May and Kitty woke. Even on the east side of the petrified pass, the bones of the ancient giants were strewn everywhere. The group did not slow until they were approaching the edge of the pass. The Nothing Plateau, Beatrice said, scanning the view of the empty flatness in front of them, punctuated only by the giant bones that lay just outside the very edges of the pass. There isn't anything for miles now but the scrap mountains. It's a wasteland. Fabio held his compass aloft, proudly, clearly convinced that the lady's gift confirmed he was the group's trusted navigator and captain. May, on the other hand, was distracted. She had the uneasy feeling that something wasn't right. "We go," Fabio said, climbing down from his horse. The others followed. Only Pumpkin remained on his mount, laying flat on his stomach and holding him tight around the neck, staring at May pitifully. His bottom lip stuck out. "Pumpkin, we have to let them go," May said, reaching up to pat his arm. Pumpkin flipped his head over so it was facing the other way. His yellow tuft of hair waved at May defiantly. "No." "Pumpkin," May said more sternly. "You need to get down this instant." "No." May looked back at Captain Fabio and B, who shrugged helplessly. "Pumpkin, maybe Captain Fabio will let you hold his compass for a while if you come down." She sent a pleading look back at Fabio, who clutched his compass to his chest protectively. Then shooting a look at Pumpkin, he softened. "It's a very shiny pumpkin," the captain said enticingly. Slowly, and with great loud sniffles, Pumpkin slid off. Pumpkin is the best. He held out his long, bony fingers for the compass. Once the horses had gone, the group continued forward out of the pass, coming to the last set of giant bones, two enormous skeletons with their hands outstretched to each other. Pumpkin drifted into the space between the enormous fingers. "It's creepy here," he frowned, turning toward May. "Do we really have to go to Hocus Pocus?" "Shh!" Everyone hissed at once. "What?" Pumpkin looked around. "Arista said to keep that quiet about Hocus Pocus." Pumpkin looked back and forth. "There's nobody here." Just then, a little black blob emerged from behind one of the giant bones. Everyone froze. Yes, I think he was always this childish. He was timid, and then once he got more comfortable, he's just childish. And he does not grow out of it. He can be very brave, but he is pretty childish. But Pumpkin is great. Pumpkin's gotta be probably my favorite character. Reminds me a lot of Mariko from Full Moon. In some way. Alright, back to the thing. Just then, a little black blob emerged from behind one of the giant bones. Everyone froze. Is another cat? Fabio whispered. Meow, Somber Kitty said, insulted. Upon closer inspection, the blob looked like a goblin, only sort of friendly. It was smiling at them wildly with its razor-sharp teeth. It reached into the pocket of its scarvening shirt and pulled out what appeared to be a pack of goalie gum, offering it to them. Everybody drifted backward except for Pumpkin. Oh, Pumpkin said, staring at the gum, clearly torn. He gets all tantrum. He gets on my nerves. Good. I have cultivated the best Pumpkin personality. That's basically what Pumpkin is, just... He only gets more tantrumy from here. It never stops. He never stops being a baby. Never. Gross. It's okay. He's a good dude. It's just, you know, he can be a bit of a butt sometimes. Doubt. He's redeemed at the end of the book for all of... I'll tell you that. All of his tantrums and all of his childishness will not matter by the end, and you will not feel this way about him, or maybe you still will, but not as much. Alright, back to the story. Oh, Pumpkin said, staring at the gum, clearly torn. It even had a shiny wrapper. He looked at May, who shook her head furiously. Then he nibbled on his fingers and looked back at the goblin. Well, I don't mind if I do. Pumpkin squatted and took the gum. Thanks, he said. He smiled companionably at the goblin, who smiled back, wider than ever. Pumpkin unwrapped the gum and put it in his mouth. Chewing, he let out a sigh of satisfaction, then looked back to the others as to say, See? And then the creature smiled even wider, opened its mouth, and tried to bite off Pumpkin's arm. Ah! As if on signal, a score of goblins leaped out from behind the bones and onto Pumpkin. Ah! Pumpkin's mouth spread into a huge, crooked, screaming O as he zipped ahead, trying to shake them off as they dangled from his shoulders. His t-shirt, his shirt. One held the puff of his hair as if it were a pair of as if it were a pair of reins. Pumpkin zigzagged toward May and the others, waving his arms in the air and screaming furiously, "Help! Help me!" With a thud, he knocked into Fabio, sending him sprawling. Like fleas, a few of the goblins hurled themselves at Fabio's knees, while three more leaped straight for his shoulders and grabbed his military medals, trying to pry them off. "Help!" Bee called, just as a saggle of goblins leaped onto her dress and untied her sash. She swatted at them with one hand as she rummaged in her backpack with the other, yanking out a large, thick, dusty book on spirits. She waved it at the goblins, knocking them off of her dress. May May started toward her, but Pumpkin crossed between them, three creatures dangling from his legs, trying to tie him in a trying to tie him with a long rope. The two on his shoulders jumped off and scurried toward May, hissing and spitting. Kitty leaped before her and reared his claws. It was at that moment that May remembered her bow and fumbled toward her toward her sh- over her shoulder for it. Her arrows went clattering out of the quiver onto the ground. She swooped downward and grabbed one, stringing it, her hands shaking as if they'd been electrified. She aimed first at the goblin tugging at the bottom of Bee's skirt, then at the one dangling from Pumpkin's hair. Back and forth, back and forth. Finally, she chose her target and, holding her breath, let the arrow fly. The arrow gently soared into the air, poised there for a moment, and then drifted into the ground like a feather. "Mamma mia!" Fabio howled, waving his sword from the ground as two goblins tied a length of rope around his feet in a nice bow. What are those arrows made of? Spaghetti?" Bee, who'd been tripped and now sat at the ground, scooting backward, flipped madly through her book, occasionally using it as a weapon. "Goblins, goblins," she muttered as she fanned the pages madly. May, May swallowed. May swallowed and gathered her wits, grabbed another arrow and shot it. Again, it merely sailed into the air gently and fluttered to the ground. She stared helplessly at the wilted arrow, and then at the chaos around her. "May, do something!" Pumpkin screamed, zigging past her. Summerkitty had backed up almost against her ankles, fending off the two creatures in front of them. May frantically thought. For some reason, John the Gibber came to mind. She looked at Beatrice, who was rolling across the dust in a goblin headlock. Fabio was groaning as two others pulled on his mustache, and Pumpkin had made his way onto the top of one of the giant skulls, trying to shake himself loose. Suddenly, May realized why she had thought of John the Gibber. It was something he once told her about goblins. She hesitated for just a moment or two, and then she cleared her throat. "How do you solve a problem like Maria?" she sang, then paused, nibbling a nail. Fabio, who seemed to have forgotten completely that he was being hogtied by goblins, stared frozen, his mouth hanging open and a long oval under his tortured mustache. But the goblins, too, paused. They looked interested but slightly disgusted. May continued to warble, her voice coming out sneaky and off key. The goblins shook their heads and went back to what they were doing. One of them leaped past Kitty and grabbed May by the foot. How do you catch a cloud and pin it down? Everyone stopped. This time, they all turned toward Pumpkin. He was, he was standing on the skull, looking at May and Shirley. She nodded urgently, and he continued singing. Oh shit! You said something. They're made of spaghetti. Where was that suck my dick part? Suck my dick. Nice. All right. Um. Several sighs were heard from the goblins. One sigh even escaped from Summer Kitty's lips. A couple of goblins dropped from Pumpkin's shoulders and gazed up at him raptly. Pumpkin continued to sing the song, meeting May's eyes. When May smiled at him, his own smile grew wide. He thrust his arms into the air operatically and began to really belt it out. One by one, the goblins let go of their captives and hobbled onto the ground. As they did, some dabbed on some some dabbed at the corner of their eyes. They began to sidle up to one another shyly. Then, slowly, they wrapped their arms around one another and hummed along. Some muttered things. Some some even dabbed on the haters. Nice. Uh, they began to sidle up to one another shyly. Then, slowly, they wrapped their arms around one another and hummed. Some muttered things the travelers didn't understand, but if they had, they would have heard statements along the lines of, I have always loved those shoes, and lavender really is your color. How do you solve a problem like Maria? May softly joined. May joined in softly. Meow. Summer Kitty crooned low. Beatrice added a light flute. Beatrice added a slight foot shuffle, and everyone followed suit. The goblins began to sit and sway their heads back and forth, smuggling together, some wiggling their toes in the air, humming along. When Pumpkin finished, they began to look restless again. He glanced at May for guidance. "Another," she whispered. He nodded. "Climb every mountain." 7 songs later, including 2 more from The Sound of Music and 3 from Cats. From Cats. I am not joking you, from Cats. We need to see that movie too. Anyway. 7 songs later, including 2 more from The Sound of Music and 3 from Cats, the goblins had passed out from exhaustion after all the excitement. When the last goblin began to snore, the group looked at one another, and then very quietly they tiptoed away. Sing Wonderwall. Hell yeah. Alright, but that is the end of chapter 18. And now we go to 19. Chapter 19, Walk of the Zombies. "Pumpkin, you were terrific!" Bee gushed. "I know." "Little May," Fabio added. "Singing. Brilliant!" They all remembered very well now the goblins they had seen in the Eternal Edifice, and how John the Gibber had informed them that there was nothing a goblin loved more than a musical. Except perhaps, shopping. As the group drifted across the Nothing Plateau, they wove their way around the junk that dotted the landscape. Old slurpy soda machines, worm-eaten billboards, broken down carriages, abandoned caskets, toasters. To May, the Nothing Plateau was hardly what it sounded like. It seemed to be full of everything. It seemed to be full of everything the rest of the Ever After didn't want. May walked quietly behind the others, her thin shoulders drooping. She was happy that they had escaped and proud of her friends, but she was bewildered by what had happened with her silver arrows. The rest of the group was still busy congratulating themselves when they crossed into the section of the plateau that ran a jagged swath through the middle of the Scrap Mountains. On either side of them, the mountains rose up lopsidedly. May could make out the giant mounds of old hearses, broken skull phones, and hollow visions that laid up ahead. Already, even this far from the Scrap Mountains, the air smelled like garbage. Pumpkin had started to float along with his chest thrust out, transported by a wave of conceit. Every time Fabio or Beatrice complimented him, he turned around, looking careless, and blew them a kiss. "It was nothing, he said as he drifted on ahead. Even Summer Kitty drifted behind him happily in awe. Pumpkin's head was held so high that he had no view of the ground beneath his feet. If he had, he may have noticed that it was beginning to break apart. Ah! A form rose out of the ground, sand-colored, with long matted hair and sagging features. Its empty, black eyes rested dully on them. Its arms stretched out stiffly in front of it. Within moments, several other creatures had burst out of the dirt, surrounding the travelers. They were all chanting. May looked at Beatrice questioningly. Beatrice grabbed her hands. Zombies! The zombies lurched slowly toward them. Run! They ducked and zipped their way out of the circle. Pumpkin shooting way out ahead, right into another zombie just rising from the ground. Pumpkin sprawled backward. Hold on, I just need to readjust. Sorry, just readjusting. All right. Ooh, this is where we. Okay. They ducked and zipped their way out of the circle. Pumpkin shooting way out ahead, right into another zombie just rising from the ground. Pumpkin sprawled backward, slowly but menacingly. His attacker bent toward him with rigidly outstretched arms. May! Pumpkin yelled, covering his eyes. Just in time, May and Beatrice grabbed him by the armpits and dragged him sideways, dodging the zombie's mechanical movements and racing ahead. Fabio drifted up behind them, turning to float backward while he waved his sword. They zigged, they zagged. Everywhere they turned, another zombie popped out of the ground beneath them, sending them screaming and racing in another direction. Dodging the trash that littered the sand, they looked over their shoulders. The zombies trailed farther and farther behind, but they kept coming relentlessly. How do we stop them? May yelled to Beatrice. Bea only shook her head furiously. Zombies are slow. Never stop. Up ahead of them, Pumpkin tripped over something and went tumbling forward. May, Bea, and Fabio skidded to a halt just before they tripped too. Between them lay what appeared to be an abandoned hearse, half buried in the sand. May looked over her shoulder. Not far off, they could hear the zombies moaning, but for the moment they were obscured from sight by the scattered mounds of trash. May grabbed the latch of the hearse and yelped, and pulled. May grabbed the latch on the hearse and pulled. Help me with this! Everyone looked at her as if her brain had been stolen by zombies, but still, they gathered and gave a collective yank on the handle of the trunk, sending it flying open. Get in! Get in! May waved her arms wildly. They climbed into the dark, wide trunk, May last of all. When they were all in, she pulled the latch closed. In the darkness, they hunched over. Somber Kitty leaped onto May's lap and curled into a ball. Pumpkin tried to do the same and had to be content perching on her knee, which was exceedingly uncomfortable. The only sound was that of Somber Kitty and May breathing, their warm breath filling up the cool air inside the trunk and making it stuffy. They listened for the zombies. Thud, thud, thud. May felt even breathing was too dangerous, so she held her breath and pinched Kitty's nose. In the dark, his green eyes glinted at her quizzically, but he did not resist. Thud, thud, thud. Just like the BTs? What's that? Well, I don't know what the BTs are. Ah, cool. Thud, thud, thud. It sounded like the zombies were right on top of them. Pumpkin shifted in his seat, whimpering. A second or two more, and then May heard it. Breathing. Someone in the trunk was breathing, and it wasn't her, and it wasn't Kitty, and ghosts didn't breathe. Pumpkin, stop squeezing me so hard, Beatrice whispered. I'm not doing anything, Pumpkin whispered back. Smells like Uncle Bonino's pasta fagioli in here, Fabio hissed. It was true. Someone in the trunk had very bad breath. At that moment, the back of the trunk seemed to drop out behind them, and with a collective scream, they were all yanked backward. And that is the end of chapter 19. Oh, this is where it gets so goddamn interesting. Oh. Yoink! Alright. I'm pretty sure you're gonna know what this entails by the title of the chapter. But this is chapter 20, The Colony of the Undead. There was a loud shuffling sound, and then the thudding of what sounded like many footsteps, and then a pause. May and the others found themselves bound together tightly by a net of old, rusty ropes. Whoever had captured them was still breathing loudly in the dark, filling the air with the stench of garlic. Dark Souls time. The thud of the zombie feet moved above them. You led him straight to us, a husky voice grumbled. There was something familiar about it, and then May realized what it was. The accent was southern. The captive stayed quiet, more out of fear of the zombies above than out of hope that the predicament they were now in was any better. They strained their ears. Slowly, surely, the zombies seemed to start thudding away. Oh, phew. The captor began dragging them through the darkness, grunting with the effort and occasionally muttering to itself. Yeah, the captor began dragging them through the darkness, grunting with the effort and occasionally muttering to itself, until they emerged into a large, starlit cavern, walled completely with junk, crushed up toasters and billboards and automobiles packed with sardines. Oh no, not packed with sardines, packed like sardines. Yeah, what are you saying now? So many sardines in that bread. Yeah, you're damn right. um, crushed up coasters and billboards and automobiles packed like sardines, forming walls and a high dome ceiling. Uh, and high forming walls and a high domed ceiling. A greeting a greeting cobbled together from various old signs hung from the fender of the wall. You have entered the colony of the undead. Meow? Somber Kitty said doubtfully. Out of the halls from all around them emerged several, maybe 40 or so spirits, all dressed in black, with powder white skeleton faces. Their backs were strapped with spears and tiny neck sacks. Sorry, I'm getting distracted because my brother is going crazy with laughter in the next room, and I'm just like, man, you're loud. Why is my thing so? Okay, let's see. Okay, how am I doing? Okay, let's just do right here. Yeah, let's see if that. Okay, we'll go a little bit more, like right there. Sorry. All right. Sorry. Out of the halls from all around them emerged several, maybe 40 or so spirits, all dressed in black with white skeleton faces. Their backs were strapped with spears and tiny net sacks of what looked to May like onyx and silver, and bouquets of periwinkles were pinned to the wa- of periwinkles were pinned at their waist. I've never come across spirits like these in my reading. Let me say that again. I've never come across spirits like these in my reading, Bee whispered to May as they sat shivering in their net. I got these here spirits running from some zombies, their captor announced. Almost led them right to us. And then look, they got a cat. There were whispers and mutters from the skeleton spirits, and then from with one quick, sharp movement, their captor reached into the dark folds of its clothes and whipped out a gleaming dagger. Whoosh! The knife sliced through the air, and the net and fell aside. And May, Pumpkin, Bee, Fabio, and Kitty came tumbling out. A sharp intake of breath issued from some of those spirits in the crowd. It's her! Someone hissed. Who? The skeletal figure closest to May leaned forward and yanked back her death shroud with a flourish. The figures let out grunts and sighs of amazement, and then applause rippled over the group, faint at first, then louder. Several fell to one knee and bowed their heads. May swept Kitty into her arms. Pumpkin grinned and took a small bow, patting his tuft. Their captor pulled off his cloak, immediate, immediately followed by its mask. Now it was May's turn to gasp. The face was colorful, solid, flushed, and breathing. It was pudgy and round, with sly, deep-set gray eyes to match the hollow of weary gray hair, and it was alive. As if on cue, all the other figures pulled off their masks and hoods too. They were all alive. May and her friends were speechless. Their captor turned to a woman in flight goggles and a jumpsuit. Amelia, go check the hearse entrance and make sure it's closed. Elvis, Jimmy, go to the lookout and find out which way the zombies are headed. The three went scurrying off down different junk-walled tunnels. What? May asked, incredulous. How? The woman turned to her, steadied her sharply, and then put her hands to her hips. Why, we're the undead, honey, she said. I'm Bertha. She took May's hand and bowed. Bertha Brettwaller. It's an honor to meet you. May blinked at her, recognizing the name instantly, too stunned to reply. The Bertha Brettwaller of Bury Swamp? The Bertha Brettwaller of Bury Swamp? And I hear, Bertha continued, that you're going to save us all. Yeah, it is, huh? Yeah, it is really cool. It's like super cool to think about it. Because I know in the D&D campaign, when you say the undead, I think the undead of Lotharica, like, it means they're like beyond dead. They're just like basically zombies. That's whenever I think of. Oh, and then like the Walking Dead, and then I think there's like that spin-off one that's, I think, something undead or something like that. I don't know. But it makes you think like, oh, they're talking about like zombies or something where it's more than dead. Yeah. So when you think of a colony of the undead, it means they're not, well, in this case, it's not like in a bad way. It's just they're still alive in a place where being alive is bad. Yeah, no, they're alive and they're trapped here. Right? It's so cool. So cool. Oh my god, that could be a D&D setting. Oh my god. Hell yeah. Oh, so hype. So hype. Ooh, I like that. I like that idea. That sounds like a cool idea. All right. Um all right. May blinked at her, recognizing the name instantly, too stunned to reply. The Bertha Brettwaller of Bury Swamp? And I hear, Bertha continued, that you're going to save us all. Everyone sat at an old picnic table, the live ones arguing over who would get to hold Somber Kitty next. As May and Bertha determined that, indeed, they share the same home in Bury Swamp, though in different eras. Bertha hadn't seen the broadside of White Moss Manor since 1897. But how are you still alive? May wanted to know, though her face drooped like melting ice cream and crow's feet crept out of the corners of her eyes. Bertha talked un I don't know. Oh, okay, there we go. No, yeah, I definitely think time passes by uh, differently. Um, though her face drooped like melting ice cream and crow's feet crept up on the corners of her eyes, Bertha talked animatedly, her puffy gray hair wild and wary. Oh, honey, haven't you noticed? You never get older here. You're running on star time, of course. Kind of warps things, you swanee. You swanee. May didn't know what swanee meant, but it did seem that she hadn't grown even a centimeter since she'd fallen into the lake. Her toes weren't poking out of her shoes. Her bobbed hair was no longer. And how long and how long had she been here? How long had her mom been missing her? How long had her mom been missing her? At Bertha's prodding, May told her more about the Bury Swamp of today. Bertha was delighted to hear that her library in White Moss Manor was still intact, and that the house was loved and cared for, though May wasn't able to tell her whether or not wild garlic still grew in the woods. Bertha's eyes widened at the tales of electric toothbrushes, in-ground swimming pools, and astronauts. She slapped her knee and let out a husky howl at a laugh. People on the moon, you don't say! Won't be long before they find us up here in the afterlife, I reckon. May grinned, thinking of living people arriving in the after amid the spirits and ghosts. How'd you end up here? May inquired. Oh, that old water demon. Bertha let out a wistful sigh, so smelly that it made May's eyes cross. I bet you wish we had that goalie gum. I bet you wish we had that goalie gum, Pumpkin whispered into May's ear. May elbowed him in the arm. Bertha stretched her way into her story. It sounded as if she'd been told 100 times. As it sounded. What do you mean up? Is the ever after up? What do you mean? Oh my god. No, I don't think it's inside the Earth. It's like a star of its own. I'd like to think of it as like a big comet or like a big asteroid or something. Not like a planet. because I don't think it's fully round. It's kind of like a flat Earth sort of thing, like a flat like surface, sort of in a way. Yeah. All right. Um, I bet what you wish we had. I bet you wish we had that goalie gum. Pumpkin whispered into May's ear. May elbowed him in the arm. Bertha stretched her way into her story. It sounded as if she'd told it 100 times before, and each time it became more interesting to her than the last. I'm out foraging, and I found this lake beyond the tangle of briars. You know the one I'm talking about, honey. Well, I was never a swimmer anyway. So the demon appears, looking all pretty at first. You've seen how she does. May nodded. Well, I look over thinking I'm looking at an angel, and then slap. Bertha clapped her hands on the table, making Somber Kitty do an aerial somersault off the lap where he'd been sitting. She pulls me in. You'd think I was a goner for sure. Except suddenly, I'm getting spit out onto the shore. Only, it's the wrong shore. Only, it's the wrong shore. Bertha leaned in ominously. Honey, it was the dead shore. May tried to cover her nose casually. Bertha straightened up and sniffed. Dunno why the demon spat me out like that. I reckon I taste as good as anyone else. Wouldn't you reckon, handsome? She winked at Fabio, grinning to reveal her garlic encrusted teeth. Fabio shuddered, twirled his mustache, and pretended to be studying the ceiling. After May had filled Bertha and the others in on the changes to Bury Swamp and the earth in general, Bertha filled her in on the undead. One way or another, we all ended up in the afterlife by accident. Amelia got lost over the ocean in her plane. She nodded her head toward the woman in the flight suit, then thumbed at another in the can skirt, red bustier, and a high-heeled black boots. Lawless Lexi here was a knife thrower for the traveling circus. Fell into the Bermuda Triangle on her way to Indonesia. Fought her way past the water demon. Plucky. May nodded. She knew the Bermuda Triangle was one of the four doorways between Earth and the afterlife. But look at me, will ya? Running on and on. I reckon everybody has things they want to ask you. She turned over her shoulder to where the colonists perched on various stools and benches, listening to every word. Now they all scrabbled to hear. Now they all scrabbled to talk to May at once. Do you really breathe fire? One man in a business suit asked. I heard you ride black shuck dogs bareback. Didn't you throw the bogey out of the eternal edifice with your bare hands? How do you plan to get Bo Cleaville? All right, now, cool your muffins, Bertha said, looking down sternly. This girl's just had a long journey. Don't everybody hog her at once. She eyed May. Maybe we should just take a little walk first. Get you acclimatized. What do you think? How about a tour? Pumpkin and May looked at each other across the table, excited. Sure, May replied. While the others rested, Bertha let May, Kitty, and Pumpkin walk. Not walk. Hold on just a second. I actually need to readjust myself again. I want to get in a comfy position. So comfy. Oh my god. Okay. While the others rested, Bertha led May, Kitty, and Pumpkin through a vast network of tunnels, winding their way up inside the Scrap Mountains. Spirits think it's just a solid pile of junk, but we've been hollowing out the inside for years, making a place of our own, where no one won't blow their bogey whistle on us. As they pushed through doorways made of car parts, soda cans full of old rusty nails, announced their arrival. I spilled water on myself. It's only a little bit, but I was too eager to get the water. So here I am, water on my titties. Sorry, I just had to do that one. I had to. Just had to. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna take another sip of water, and I'm not gonna spill it on myself. Okay. I did not spill it on myself. Um, as they pushed through the doorways made of car parts, soda cans full of old rusty nails announced their arrival. Everywhere, ropes suspended from the ceiling dangled pot-bellied stoves, refrigerators, large rocks, even chandeliers. Sorry, I did it. Sorry. Chandeliers. You get it, Chandler? Do you get it? Chandeliers? Chandeliers? Do you get it? 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 I get it. Do you get it? Chandler. You were typing something. What were you gonna say? Joking. Cool. Okay. um, Ropes suspended from the ceiling dangled pot-bellied stoves, refrigerators, large rocks, even chandeliers. In case we get intruded, Bertha said, nodding to the precariously hung items. You can bet how happy the baddies would be to catch a pile of live ones like us. That's why I had to net you. Careful. Careful. Bertha dodged levers sticking out of the walls and stepped over tiny strings that crossed the hallway, guiding the others along behind her to avoid the booby traps. You get to know it like the back of your hand eventually, she assured them. Bertha led them upward through one garbage-walled corridor, after another, along bridges made from abandoned shackles. uh, where was I? Bertha led them Bertha led them upward through one garbage-walled corridor after another, along bridges made from abandoned shackles that could be unhooked at a moment's notice, sending their occupants into the crevices below. Deeper inside, there were large cavern-like areas stockpiled with food, bars of silver and onyx. Helps to ward off spirits, Bertha said. But I'm sure you know all that. One enormous room had shelves up to the ceiling, packed to the gills with books. Many of the jackets ripped off, none of them showing the titles, till you looked right at them and the letters drifted into view. We get these at half price from Crawmart. Bertha turned to a stack to the right and pulled a few volumes off the shelf. I was a teenage goblin, potty training your black shookhound puppy. Let me. Sorry. I should really have a warning for when I'm gonna cough. I should do that next time. Alright. Where was I? Bertha turned to a stack to the right and pulled a few volumes off the shelf. I was a teenage goblin, potty training your black shookhound puppy. So you want to be an evil ruler? She showed the books to me, then reshelved them. Pays to know the enemy, Bertha breathed at Pumpkin, who winced and swayed as if he might faint. Other rooms had no ceilings, but were exposed completely to the stars above. And to May's shock, gardens brimming with vegetables, fruits, and flowers grew inside. Bertha explained. Got seeds from a guy called O'Harris, a botanist. What do you know? Went down with a ship in the Triangle. Lucky day for us, I reckon. We gotta live on something. We can't count on food sacrifices these days. So many people on Earth had stopped doing that kind of thing because we've stopped believing in ghosts and spirits. Only believe in what they can see. Think ghosts are just in spirit. Think ghosts are just in stories. What a bunch of ninnies. She shook her head. We can only count on ourselves now. Bertha turned to another door. Here's the bank. On a table sat stacks upon stacks of shining coins. All the teletokens we'll ever need. Bertha continued. We all got our own teleporter, so we can transport ourselves to any booth in the realm at any time. Oh shit, okay. So that's probably how they're gonna get to Hocus Pocus. So yeah, that's probably how. If not, I don't know how they're gonna do that because that's a ways way when looking at the map. Where's the map? Jesus fucking Christ! Give me the map. Oh well, they're not too far from the. Sorry, I'm just looking at the map. All right. um. All the tokens we'll ever need, Bertha continued. We got our own teleporters, so we can transport ourselves to any booth in the realm at any time. May gasped. Was it you? Were you the ones who took all the tokens? I saw that in the newspaper. The proud grin crept diagonally across Bertha's face. You saw that too, huh? We keep a copy of every single newspaper in the archives, if you want to look at it again. We got live ones hidden all over the realm, honey, fighting for the cause. We got all these little ways to stick it to the big guy, even though we never even seen him. But now we got you. We knew about that whole Eterna Edifice fiasco before the bogey was done peeling himself off the sand. Some ghouls leaked the news about the Book of the Dead and what it said about you. I plumb just about fell over when I heard. Huh. Huh. Bertha patted her gray puff of hair as they made their way up, and up. And up until up. Let me say that again. Bertha patted her gray puff of hair as they made their way up, until they reached a circular door in the ceiling, made out of a hubcap. This is my favorite, she said, giving the hubcap a shove. It flipped open to reveal a ladder. Bertha started climbing it, and motioned the others to follow. They emerged into the night air, and to a breathtaking sight. Half of the ever after lay stretched out before them. They could see clear to the Dead Sea. There, indeed, was the dark lighthouse of Hocus Pocus, dark clouds swirling above it, filling May with dread. Pumpkin gripped May's hand. She looked back at him gratefully. Meow? May directed her gaze at Kitty. He was looking at her bathing suit. Its zipping stars and supernovas caught the light and reflected it in tiny bursts. And though the bursts of lightning they could see must have been miles and miles away. It's a great location, huh? Bertha gushed. It's so isolated that hardly anybody comes up sniffing around, and we can just teleport down to the shorest town to spy on dark spirits when we get a hankering. We've been needing to do that a lot lately. They've been on the move. Something big on the horizon. You can just feel it. May scanned the view nervously, then looked at Bertha. What are you going to do? Bertha shrugged. What are we gonna do? Something. What are we gonna do? Something. Anything. When we started hearing about you, our spirits rose. Bertha seemed to get choked up, but it turned out she was just wincing from a bit of garlic pricking the inside of her cheek. She stuck a finger in her mouth and moved it to where she could suck on it. A girl who can fly out of the eternal edifice is sure someone we gotta have on our side. Book or no book. She looked May up and down, sizing her up. I would have I wouldn't have thought you'd be so tiny though. You look like a feather you look like a feather could knock you over. Bertha? May began. Come on, Bertha interrupted, leading them back down the ladder. There's more. Bertha was all business as she directed them down the next set of corridors. How do you manage to get through the portal, Miss Maybird? She asked. Um, it was mostly thanks to me, Pumpkin replied, stifling a fake yawn and looking to see if Bertha was impressed. But she already seemed distracted. We offer lots of classes, Bertha said, tapping her finger to her chin, hobbling ahead purposefully as she waved at this and that cavern full of neatly lined desks. A chalkboard hung on one of the hallway walls, announcing the classes scheduled for that day. Clevilleology, Clevilleology, 9 a.m. Combat with ultimate evil, 12. Coping with life when everyone around you is dead, 1 p.m. Ready, set, exercise, 2 p.m. Of course, we spend most of our time training, getting ready for the day when it's time to go up against Bo Cleavel for good. Bertha entered one of the cave classrooms, pulled a newspaper off a shelf, and flipped to the back. We've been running an ad ever since we got the reports about you coming out of Ether. She flattened the paper against a desk, pointing to a passage about halfway down the last page. Spirits totally against realm domination, the headline read. Her breath bounced off the desk and flooded May's nostrils. We were hoping you'd lead us to our goal. May gazed at the words on the page. How many of you are there? Bertha calculated quickly, counting on her fingers. About 40 here, and we're in contact with about 10 or more through the mail. Oh, and the telegrams. We smuggled a booth from Hocus Pocus. Between the telebooth and the teleporter, we got things covered. She winked. Anyway, about 50 altogether, though we're sure there are a lot of other live ones in the realm who just don't know where to find us. May thought back to the globe she'd seen in Arista's study back in Belmorte, which had listed the various populations in the ever after. But the dark spirits, there are so many. Bertha nodded. Plus, Bo Cleavel is probably worth more. Let me say it again. Plus, Bo Cleavel is probably worth about 1,000 of them put together. And of course, there's the bogey. May felt a lump in her throat, but Bertha tilted her chin up. What we got in our favor is that we're still pretty scattered. Those dark spirits. They control most of the city of Ether, that's certain. For a while, we were just kind of laying low. Like I said, though, things have picked up. The Ghouls have been raiding towns and remaking them into what they call Clevevilles. That's because Cleveland likes to have everything just so. You Swanee. Everything orderly, kinda clean and dull, and everything named after him, of course. Her gray eyes twitched with disdain. She led them into the hallway again, right past the recreation hall, where Fabio had dug out a pack of cards and was playing a game of old hag with himself, while Beatrice was flipping through a book. Pumpkin, Pumpkin, you can stay here with the cat. Come on, May. She led May to another doorway and stepped inside. Here's our archery range. She nodded to a figure across the range. It was a cardboard cutout of a ghoul with snarling teeth. Somebody had drawn cross eyes over where his real eyes had been, and a curled mustache under his snout. They had scrawled "Ghoul Smell" again across his chest. Bertha studied May, her eyes drifting to her quiver of arrows. I wonder if I could see them arrows? May pulled her bow and quiver from her back and held them out. Bertha pulled out. Bertha pulled the string taut, shutting one eye tight. This one's special, a real beaut, a North Farm original. All swiney, all swanee, very rare. It doesn't work very well, May said quietly. Bertha looked at her askance. Bertha looked at her askance, then handed the bow back. Here's your target. She nodded toward the goal. Oh, I don't know, May murmured. It's a goal. You've got to do it. Bertha held the quiver of arrows out to her. She gave May that look again, like she was daring her. Obediently, May took the bow, strung an arrow, drew it back, and obediently, May took the bow, strung an arrow, strung strung an arrow, drew it back, aimed, then let it go. Instead of soaring toward the target or even across the range, the arrow drifted through the air like a feather once again, making it only a few feet before landing gently on the ground, as if it had fallen fast asleep. May looked at Bertha Brettwaller, and Bertha Brettwaller looked at May. Try again. May tried. Again. The arrow drifted to the ground, lifeless. Sorry, I'm just like, my computer is working very hard right now. And the fan is probably like, pretty like, just not having a good time. And then I'm not using my lap desk either, so it's on top of the blanket and it's getting hot and it's probably not good. But like, I don't know. I should take more care of my computer. Can you hear the fan? Pretty sure you can hear the fan. Oh, you can't? Oh, cool. Nice. Alright. May tried. Again. The arrow drifted to the ground lifeless. There's nothing wrong with them arrows, Bertha said. The problem is with you. Your heart's not in it. Your heart's not in it. She studied May for a long, long moment. Otherwise, they'd fly straight. Bertha chewed on her lips for a moment, one eyebrow descending over one eye. You ain't planning on helping us. You ain't planning on. You ain't planning to help us, are you? May's face heated up desperately. Well, it's okay. I'm not sure, but the arrows are a special kind of arrow. No, but the thing is, they're special arrows. Okay. This might be spoilers, but I'm not. I don't remember. I can't really remember if this is true or not. But if she believes in herself, and if she has her heart in it, the arrow will hit the target every single time. It doesn't matter. Well, it does matter if she's aiming at it, at the target. But if she's aiming and she doesn't have her heart into it, the arrow won't fly, or the arrow will just, you know. Yeah, that's what she means. They're special. So yeah, I think when she has her heart into it, they will hit the target every single time. It's that kind of thing. It's not like, oh, she doesn't know how to shoot. Basically, the intent to kill. Yes. Yes. Well, she has the intent to do something. No hesitation. Kill. I mean, sure. Yeah, it could be for kill, I guess. Okay. Um. I won't hesitate. Oh man. Nice. Very nice. All right. Oh my god, it's 10:17. All right. I need to see. That's a sort of longish chapter, but we can make it work. Actually, I'm just gonna read until. Let's see. All right. I'm like trying to figure out where I want to leave off. I'm almost done with this chapter, but I feel like I could read some more. But also, I could probably just stop here and then I could just talk to you. I think that's what I'm going to do. Okay. So, where was I? Okay. Bertha chewed on her lips for a moment, one eyebrow descending over one eye. You ain't planning to help us, are ya? May's face heated up desperately. The only thing she could think of to say in response was, I have a mom. Bertha stared at her for another long moment. May felt the need to say more. The lady says the way back to Bury Swamp is under... I was saying that in Bertha's voice, sorry. May felt the need to say more. The lady says the way back to Bury Swamp is under the bogey's bed. Bertha was silent for a few moments, more as she sucked on her garlic clove, moving it around in her mouth, ruminating. Well, we'll take you, she finally said. It was the last thing May had expected to hear. Why? Bertha leaned forward, resting her elbows on her knees. Well, shoot. I know what you left behind. She looked at May again, seriously, and 100 years of sadness seemed to shine there behind her eyes. Then she smiled her garlicky smile. But I also got a better reason. What's that? We need you, so I gotta believe in you. May stared at Bertha with a heavy lump in her throat, but Bertha only stared back at her evenly, clasping her hands together. I believe you'll come back. Zombies, unfortunately, are the stupidest of all the dark spirits, even stupider than ghouls, who have an IQ of minus 36. So when May and the others vanished into the trunk of the hearse, that zombies were left discombobulated and lost, staggering back and forth across the Nothing Plateau. Wait, let me say that again. So when May and the others vanished into the trunk of the hearse, the zombies were left discombobulated and lost, staggering back and forth across the Nothing Plateau. Eventually, they bumped into the goblins who were making the slow journey home, show tunes still ringing in their ears. When the two groups converged and saw that neither of them had captured their prey, they argued bitterly. The goblins blamed the zombies, saying they wouldn't know a live one if it bit them on the severed limb. The zombies countered this with a resentful which was the only word in the zombie vocabulary. And then, although they were headed in the exact same place, the two groups went their separate ways. As the goblins made their slow way south, choosing the route with the best smells, the story of pumpkin singing went with them. In every cafe, morgue, and boutique, the goblins stopped to share tales of a singer with the voice of an angel and the head of a rather large squash. And from Stabby Eye to Fiery Fork, among all the murmurings about a girl, from Stabby Eye to Fiery Fork, among all the murmurings about a living girl who had escaped the city of Ether, and a living cat with little to no fur roaming the desert, a new rumor emerged. Unbeknownst to him, Pumpkin was becoming a legend. And that is the end of chapter 20. Oh wait, I need to mark my place. What the heck? Okay. Nice. Thank you for listening and goodbye.